This series of author interviews is brought to you by Leisure Press and the Book Reality Experience, turning writers' dreams into book realities.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another of our book reality series, our interviews with independent authors. And today we're joined by Barbara Ann Quinlan, author of the Love Seeker series. Hi, Barbara. Good to see you. How are you?
Hi, Ian. It's great to see you.
Excellent. And you're joining us from where today? Whereabouts are you in the world?
Would you believe Lakewood, New Jersey?
Excellent. So let's talk about Love Seeker. In a nutshell, what's Love Seeker? What's it about? And why did you decide to write it?
Love Seeker is about the search for love, but not romantic love, for the real love, for the true love, for the love that is the essence of our existence, for the love that never dies. The first theme of the book is that love has an incredible power to link us to our beloveds, to guide us to its own awakening within us. And the strength of that leads us through our life.
And it's your life story. It's your story from you growing up in Southern California in the 1950s, 60s.
No, I grew up in upstate New York until I was almost 12. And then my father brought the whole family to California. But I wanted to say that the secondary theme of Love Seeker is that so long as you're breathing, you can reconstruct your life. Physically, mentally, I want to say spiritually, you can reconstruct your life. That possibility is always there, so long as one is breathing. And yeah.
And it's in 3 volumes. So as you say, you were born in upstate New York. You grew up in your teenage years in Southern California, but then you left to try and find yourself, yeah?
I left to go and study at the Theatro Laboratorium of Jerzy Grotowski in Wrocław, Poland. And I went to him because I actually used to say if Jung was alive, I would go there. But because he's not and Grotowski is, I am going to Grotowski. So I suppose in some sense, you could say it was a journey to find oneself. And in the ultimate sense, I would find there the treasure of my life.
Now, you were, I suppose, to use a stereotype, you were the archetypal wild child of the 1960s by your own admission. Would you agree with that?
I didn't really look at myself that way, but I suppose it's a fair analysis. In my upstate New York upbringing, I was incredibly sheltered and raised by a very staunch Catholic. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I would find out I was in fact Jewish. Big shock to everybody in the family, but even to my own mother, but my grandmother knew. So yes, I did not want to come to California. When I was 12, I regarded it as the Mecca of sin of the world. I wanted to stay with the nuns in New York and become a nun. And yeah, when you go out into the world and you've been overly sheltered, there's kind of an interesting backlash that happens where my thirst for life was very strong.
And that thirst for life, I mean, you really did incorporate the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle. You eventually ended up in the arms of a very famous pop singer in Israel, yes?
Yes, he is, in fact, Zohar Gov is the most famous star in all of modern Israel, and he's been dead for 34 years.
And he had a particular style of music, though, within Israeli pop.
He was a Mizrahi singer, or Oriental. He came from Yemenites and he was the first of the Oriental singers to make it onto the radio. And after him, the herd followed. And since then, many have tried to copy his voice, but no one really could because he was incredibly unique. He sang from his soul. He ripped. I mean, I had a nightclub owner, tell me that he would trade his parents, his wife, and his children for Czar to be alive. Seriously.
And you also rubbed shoulders with the likes of Rod Steiger and Elizabeth Taylor in Hollywood.
Yeah, Rod Steiger, I didn't even realize when I met him that he was one of the greatest actors of our time, of that time, or ever. As I got to know him and then would later actually see most of his films, 95% of every character he presented was not Rod Steiger. 95%. He was a master at creating characters, and he was wonderfully fun to be with. He was so passionate, and so we would like laugh all the way to, you know, some superb restaurant in Malibu and sing all the way home.
But it would be fair to say that you were also on a bit of a self-destructive trail during some of those years because of substance abuse. So that would be fair?
Oh, yes. Oh, greatly. Oh, so much so. And it's funny because I had already found the key to my heart. I had already knew what I really was made of. I had tasted and danced and swam in the energy of what the Hindis call prana, the ocean of light and energy. It was mine, and it was mine to go to anytime I wanted. But there was a certain arrogance that came with that discovery. I felt that I was invincible. And in the end, my journey through severe cocaine addiction, and it wasn't that I was doing it every single day. It's just that once you start doing it, you're doing it for 3-4 days at a time. And there were several years that I was caught by that. Maybe it was only twice a month, but it doesn't matter. It's devastating to one's life. It's completely devastating. And now I'm glad that I went through that, because preceding that time, not only was I severely arrogant, but the judge within me, how could anyone become like that? You know, how could anybody become? I mean, the judge that kept cranking out these concepts of, you know, these people and how low they were. It's like the experience getting through it, living through it, taught me compassion. And because of that compassion, I was able to write these books. If I did not have compassion first for myself, I would not be able to write these books, because I felt like it was, if I was going to write these books, a voice in the back of my head said, will you tell this? Will you say this? Will you tell that? Will you say this? And it was like another voice came and said, if you don't, then you will have just written romantic fluff. It won't have any value to anyone. But if you are willing to stand up and say, I have been through this and this and this and this, and I stand here now whole, happy, and full of love, and survived, you know, and had, even until this moment, such a rich life. I wanted people to know. I didn't want to hide anything. I didn't want somebody to come back to me and say, well, you've never been through this, or this has never happened to you. It would have been a betrayal not to be absolutely truthful.
And within that truth, what was the one pivotal moment that set your life on a new direction, on the direction that it's taking and still takes nowadays? What was that one moment?
Well, I think that the thing, when Czar died, that was nearly destroyed me. Or I nearly destroyed myself, because I felt if I had been there, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Was in America at the time. But then I went back to Israel to kind of clean his grave, and a voice said, don't come back here. Don't come back. Okay, so I met my daughter's father, and having the child changed everything. Now I could not let myself slide back into hell. Now I had this wonderful being that was in my charge for the time being. And I would have to say that rescued me.
And from there, you then developed into, you became a practitioner of yoga, you became a health practitioner, you moved forward in a completely different direction, didn't you?
Well, my studies in theater were, extremely esoteric, you could say, at some point. We studied dynamic hatha yoga, tai chi chuan, kathakali, Balinese dance. I mean, a whole stream of the ancient Chinese voice resonator technique, and also qigong. So by the time my daughter was born, I was a chi master. I was able to heal people. I still am. I don't do it as often now unless somebody really, really needs me. And how to use that. I mean, I never charged for a healing. So I figured, well, how am I going to use this? And I had been working in and out of the film industry, and there was no way that I could do that and raise my daughter, because you go onto a set at 6 o'clock in the morning and you get off that set at 6 o'clock the next morning, and maybe you don't work for a week, and then 3 weeks, and then you work for 5. It was not possible. So someone suggested to me that the up and coming career was going to be massage therapy. So I went back to school and I studied kinesiology and everything that needed to be studied, and became a certified massage therapist. And in that way, I could charge for the massage, but not for the healing. And I would have people say, "What are you doing?" I had one woman say, "I'm a Christian," because the energy would like pour. That twice that happened to me in the beginning of my career and 20 years later, that somebody was like so terrified of feeling their own energy, just the energy. It's not sexual, just the energy, and it, yeah. So for me, it was profound experience. I when I realized that I could heal people, I really did not want to. I just did not. I mean, I just, they would thank you so profusely. You want to crawl under the rug, because to me, I didn't own it. I didn't know how to own it. I just knew that I could do it. And other people knew too. So they would come after me. It was very beautiful. I am very, very grateful that I had the chance to give back. And I feel like it paid back a lot of karma, which I'll deal with in the next book.
Very good. Now, speaking of books there, when you said about the next book, I mean, we've got the trilogy out, which are screaming to be a Netflix series after all.
Oh, yes.
They really should be a Netflix series. But when did you decide to start writing? Or have you always written notes or journals? Or how did it actually manifest?
I've always known that I would write a book about my life since I'm 5 years old. I was walking around the block in Buffalo, New York, and right before we moved to Penfield, and it struck me. And it's so fun because here I am, 5 years old. I have no idea what kind of life I'm going to live, but I knew that I would write about my life. Okay, that's fun. And then I wrote my first poem when I was probably 5, a little bit later that year, for the nuns. And I got up in the morning and I had to write really quick, and it came out very well. And then I wrote a lot of poetry, and mostly, and then journals. Since I was 14, I started keeping journals. Thank God, because I needed them later. And then I wrote some screenplays. I was commissioned to write a few screenplays. I wrote one about Czar. It never got taken. And then one day I was standing in my kitchen, and I had a vision, which is where the book begins. And the vision was of running into my lover from Paris many years later, as I'm walking up the street of Théophile Gautier. It was just, the image was so clear, and it struck me how many things have happened since then. And I started to see my life as an event, a chain that was, that was set on a rail. And that rail was that love that I had searched for since I was a child. And that energy, the essence of the ocean of light and energy is a profound love, almost more than one can bear. So I thought, okay, And then when my daughter left for New York to get her master's in psychology, and Tim and I were still living in Malibu, the minute she walked out the door, I started writing it. When I was raising her, I told myself I did not write when I was raising her, because my experience as a writer was I would write for 48 hours straight. I would write until I was crippled. And I would all kinds of crazy things. I would, start writing paragraphs where every single word was the same syllable. I mean, it was like, yeah. So I did not believe that I could write and raise her at the same time. It was certainly I may very well have been wrong, but not until she walked out the door did I actually start the book.
Very good. And having finished the book, what was the best feedback that you've received for the trilogy so far?
Well, I found you to begin with.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, I mean it. I really respect you as a publisher, as an editor. You are beyond belief. You held me to the truth. You examined, you wanted proof of the things that I was saying, because I think a lot of it was just like, this cannot be, right? And we were even able to drum up the video of me sitting with Rod Steiger and Elizabeth and Warner and and the Nazi hunter winding up sitting in his lap. That was so great. Yeah.
Well, that was the Simon Wiesenthal Memorial dinner, wasn't it?
Yeah,
award dinner, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, huge, enormous. What a night that was. I'm sitting on the dais with Rod. No one knows who I am. I'm the only person on the dais. Sammy Davis Jr. and his wife are sitting next to me. I'm the only person on the dais nobody knows. And after dessert and a few drinks, I wound up sitting in Simon's lap. I adore him. He was a great hero to me. So, yeah, I was able to prove anything that you questioned because it was all true.
And of course, the thing from the publisher's point of view, not that I didn't believe you, but if we were going to say that this happened on a certain date, and we went back and then discovered that that actual date was a year and a half before, we had to make sure that the time
absolutely
worked properly, etc.
Absolutely. And believe me, it wasn't easy to nail some of it down. Not really.
Now,
we did.
When we're talking about that, how did you actually, now I know the answer to this, obviously, but for anybody watching, how did you find us in the first place?
My beloved sister was already being published by you, Kathleen Quinlan, and The Inner Champion. And she said, well, why don't you send it to Ian? And I went, okay. And then you actually liked it, or liked it enough to say you would publish it. And I was very excited. And I love what you did. I had just broken it down into a trilogy before I sent it to you. Before that, it was this behemoth that, I don't know, like this. And when I broke it down into a trilogy, and you helped me just so much. I mean, the books are so cute. They fit in your pocket practically. Anybody can shove it in their purse or their little satchel. The covers are gorgeous. We went through a lot for that, but they're gorgeous. And I love your work. You are really quite something. You deserve all the success you're having, and I hope that you'll have more.
Oh, well, I'm humbled, but thank you very much. But we're going to switch this focus back to yourself now. So the feedback that you've received from others with regards to the book, what's been the best feedback that you've received?
I think it was my girlfriend Converse, who read it in a weekend. I mean, I'm surprised that people, not including Converse, read it in a weekend, and she just could not stop complimenting my work, and also said something like, it's amazing that you survived. She said no one else could have survived. That's what she said. And I have had friends and not friends who actually don't really like me as a person write wonderful things about the book and how much they loved it. I mean, it was a big shock to hear from people that I know just really never terribly took to me, loved the book, which is quite interesting. And they think the writing is wonderful. But not everybody thinks that, of course, not everyone.
No, well, we can't, I mean, as your fellow countryman once said, you can't please all of the people all of the time. saying that, you've got a microcosm of life in various places that people may, or I mean, they may have read about before, but they've never experienced, and you experienced them. So the being an au pair in Paris, the drama student for one of the most respected but off the wall drama schools that ever existed. The ability to mix and rub shoulders with Hollywood elite and still keep a life whilst being a highly functioning addict, and then get through all of that. I mean, there are microcosms in your book that people look at and they would think, my God, how did you survive? And thankfully you did.
I did. I really did. And yeah, I really did. I'm just wondering if it was the Catholic admonition against suicide, but I never actually considered suicide. I contemplated it when I was way before I had a drug problem.
Now, you mentioned as well that you're working on a fourth. So what's next for Barbara Ann Quinlan?
Well, it's not going to be book 4 of Love Seeker. What I'm going to write about is block time, the physicist's theory of block time, which is that here we have an aquarium. Okay. And in that, this is the beginning of time and the end of time, though it's hard to imagine the end of time. And within this aquarium, many fish are swimming. So as I said in the beginning, when I was 5 years old, I knew I was going to write about my life. How did I know that? The idea of block time is that the past, the present, and the future are all happening at once, are equal. And I think that this is one of the reasons it's so difficult for some people to overcome whatever happened in their childhood, because part of them is still there, living their house, obeying their rules. So this is just like one part of it. An example would be, okay, 1992, we have moved to Encino. It's a mile from where the epicenter of the earthquake is going to be. Huge. And the entire experience of that was just preceding that. I was looking for a new home for my daughter and I, and there was this one apartment that she refused to go into. She wouldn't go into that building, let alone the elevator. Well, when the earthquake hit, nothing had happened in our home. It was amazing. My walls went, everything that was hanging on the walls was running parallel with the earthquake. So I didn't lose anything. I had no glass on the floor. I had to throw a saucer into the sink to get something broken, just, for luck. And a friend of mine had, this inches of glass on his floor. So we had it on over there. And we drive by that building that my daughter wouldn't walk into, and it's on the ground. Now, is she psychic, or had she been on that ride before? So for me, I traveled a lot as a young person, as you know, and then in these later years, I traveled a lot. And as we went to Moscow and Ukraine and all the way through South America, and you meet people, and when you meet them and you hold out your hand, there's like a shock that I know you. Now, from the way that I was raised, I never thought about, past lives or anything. And even now, I don't believe in it because I don't know it. But I use that to help to explain what I cannot explain, which is this tremendous, powerful connection that you can feel to total strangers. And then not only do I feel that, but there comes like a vivid dream. As I get to know them, as I spend time with them, I start to see something. And that's what I'll write about.
It sounds absolutely fascinating, and I shall look forward to the manuscript when you've come up with it. Now,
I can't wait to give it to you.
Barbara, thanks ever so much for taking some time out of your evening to talk to us. Now, we normally try and end this with our take on the Actor Studio questionnaire. So these are quick fire questions, first thing into your head. Are you ready for this?
I am.
Excellent. So, Barbara Ann Quinlan, author of the Love Seeker trilogy. What is your favorite book?
The Idiot by Dostoevsky.
And if you have one, what is your least favorite book?
I don't have one because I have never continued to read a book I was not enjoying.
Excellent.
I just read it.
Emotionally or creativity wise, what turns you on?
Music, can be jazz, can be classical. I'd say music is right up there at the top, and anything else that turns me on is not for public consumption.
What turns you off?
Fascism.
Summer or winter?
Autumn.
Nice answer. On a completely...
Yeah, and I want to say that my favorite poet said, autumn already, but why regret an eternal sun if we are committed to the discovery of divine light far beyond those who die with the seasons. Rambo.
Very good. On a completely free day to do anything you want, who do you spend it with?
Well, I rarely get to spend time with my daughter who lives up in the vineyard. So I would have to say myself, sorry to say. Myself.
Oh, no. That's a perfectly
I
valid
have
answer.
very little time like that. I have very little time that I can spend just with myself.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many authors say the same thing, that a little time for themselves.
Isn't that terrible? Oh my God.
Mountains or oceans?
God, for me, that's really hard to say because I love the forest and I love the ocean. So I have to tell you, having lived so long in Southern California, I was like 20 minutes from either, and I love both. I could not say.
Okay. So you mentioned music earlier on there. If you've got one song to listen to for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth.
Perfect. Who makes you laugh the most?
Oh, goodness. My daughter. She's hysterical. Yeah.
And what smell do you love?
Jasmine and rose.
And conversely, what smell do you hate?
Coconut. As in when you have a lotion infused with coconut or a massage lotion infused with coconut. It's dreadful. I cannot stand it. Although I do like a coconut lemon cake, but that's a totally different story.
And other than the professions that you have done, what profession would you like to attempt?
I've been singing all my life, and it's a very strong possibility that I'll be singing in some jazz clubs, just like stepping up. I don't really want it as a profession or to be paid. I just love to sing. It's it's a beautiful experience, especially as a once actor. It's a beautiful experience. And I sing a cappella. I'm a terrible, I don't do team anything, including band. I just don't. And the other thing would be, I realized I could have been a linguist because I'm very, very good at language.
Very good. How many do you speak, just as an aside?
I speak 5 languages, sort of, and I just have the ability when I go into my desire to communicate is so strong. Like even in Russia, I spent half the time trying to figure out how to say spasiba, which is thank you, and just trying to understand, And as you probably know, there are some countries in which it is appreciated if you try to speak their language, and there are other countries where if you try and you're not speaking it well, you better not speak. Just don't even bother. So, yeah, but whatever.
Excellent. And what profession would you definitely not like to do?
Well, I'm sorry to say this, but the number one thing that comes directly to my mind is either garbage collector or grave digger.
And speaking of grave digging, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Good job.
Good
well
work.
Done.
Excellent. Barbara Ann Quinlan, thanks ever so much for your time, Barbara. I really, really think your books, and I've always said it, they are a Netflix series waiting to happen. What we need to do is find someone in the Netflix world to go, my goodness me, look at this story we have to tell. But until then, I hope people go out and buy the books and read your wonderful journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian, for everything. I think that you're wonderful.
Oh, thanks very much.
Take care, dear.
Hi, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more readings and author interviews. And don't forget to hit that button to be notified every time we post new content.